Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I want to talk about routing wiring for shore power hookups on my camper van project. So as many of you probably know, I am taking my 2015 Ford Transit and I'm trying to convert it into a little bit of an adventure van family camper setup. So one of the first things I want to do is to enable it so that when you roll up to either at home or a campsite, we can now plug in to a normal 120 volt AC shore power connection and use it to charge batteries, run appliances, etc., etc. So this setup right now doesn't have a native way to allow that interface smoothly. So I don't want to do something ghetto like just routing it through the window or jamming it between the doors. So we're actually going to find a way to route a clean cable through the body into the main cabin. So if that sounds like fun, why don't we jump on over and take a look at how we're going to do that.
So the first thing to do is to figure out how to run the wiring into the van. And I've seen some really creative solutions around. So for example, I've seen people run wiring through the bumper or also by drilling a hole in the side of the van and installing a dedicated plug. One of the reasons I didn't really like these two options was that they would require significant modifications to the interior trim of my passenger vehicle, as well as clearly signal that this was a camper van. Then I stumbled upon a really great build where the guy actually tucked the plug underneath the van and then routed it up into the vehicle through the B-pillar inside the car. I decided to go with this approach with a slight modification. So instead of going through the B-pillar and again having to modify the interior trim, I decided to go through the battery box, which is actually under the driver's seat in my vehicle.
All right, so since we plan on bringing in the shore power underneath the driver's seat, basically via the main battery box, the first thing we should do is remove some of those components like the battery. So I've already done that. In fact, if you want to see how I got to this stage, please check out our other video where we discuss how to remove and replace a battery on a Ford Transit. That got us to this stage where we had removed the main battery out from underneath the driver's seat. So now we're going to take a few extra steps to think about trying to get that shore power in. So the first thing we're going to probably do is we're going to remove this battery box. So this plastic battery box actually comes out quite easily. So let me just move some of these cables safely out of the way. And this guy, it literally is just sitting in here. So we just have to be a little bit careful that we don't catch on some of the other components, but this thing should just pop right out. All right, there we go. Okay. Battery box is out. All right, so we've got the battery box out now, and I thought I would just take a minute to show you what it looks like in here in case you're thinking about doing modifications yourself. So it's pretty open. Now, my original plan was to try to come up through the same location where the battery cables were, but you can see this is already a rat's nest of cabling. I don't think I can fit an extension cord through there. The other thing to notice is you might be tempted, if I move the flashlight away, you see there's already a hole there, right? There's a 1/2 inch hole off to the side that already goes clean through the floor. And you might really be tempted to run the wire through there, but let me show you what that is actually for. So if we come here to the battery box, remember we took off this hose, right? This is the vent hose for the battery, okay? And it goes down through the bottom of the battery box, and there's this peg right here. That's the hole where this vents. So sorry, I can't get a very good view of it. Okay, there's the hole, right? That's the vent. So that goes actually and takes up that 1/2 inch hole in the bottom of the floor. So that hole right there is unfortunately not a viable option to route the wire through. However, look right back here, a little ways behind in that little dent, there's some space. So what we're going to have to end up doing is drilling a 1/2 inch hole down through the floor. So let's go ahead and bust out the drill, and unfortunately we're going to have to punch a hole in the floor of the van. All right, it's not the cleanest thing in the world, but there is a 1/2 inch hole right there. So let's head down to the bottom and we're going to install a little grommet.
Alright, so I don't know what happened with my camera, but I wasn't able to get footage of the grommet installation, but it's really mindless. I mean, a rubber grommet is really simple. It's just a little piece of rubber at a 1/2 inch inner diameter, and you just literally slip it into the hole in the sheet metal, and it provides a nice seal for the cable to go through. One other little trick here is that actually if you squirt a little bit of WD-40 on the cable, it makes it a lot easier to slide through. So with that being said, let's just skip the grommet installation video and let's talk about getting ourselves a cable that we can use to route through the hole once the grommet is installed.
All right, so now it's time to get some wire to run through that hole in the floor. So I actually went and grabbed myself a power strip. I got a power strip instead of an extension cord because typically with these power strips, the gauge of the wire is a little bit thicker. So this is actually 14 gauge wire, which I think will work nicely. So all I did was basically unscrew the back, pop this thing open, and as you can see, here's the wire that I want. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut a couple of these connections here so that I can actually just route the wire through. All right, so now I need a way to store the male end of the connector. So instead of having it just dangling out the bottom of the van, I want to be able to hook it or plug it into something to keep it out of the way. So I saw somebody else do this, so I thought it was a pretty good idea. So I've just got myself a female connector, and all I'm going to do is I want to be able to plug the male end into here, and I will attach this to the bottom of the chassis so it will hold in one place. Now the only issue is obviously I don't want these leads to be hot for any reason. There's no reason they should be. It's really just going to be a holder, but just to be sure, what I'm going to end up doing is let's go ahead and take a Dremel, cut off all of these connectors, and then I'll just tape up or heat shrink or do something on this side to make sure that we don't get any shorts. Again, that shouldn't be a problem because the male end, when it's not plugged into anything, obviously it shouldn't be hot for any reason. So let's go ahead, Dremel these off, and then we'll be back in a second. All right, here we are. So now it's snaked all the way up through, and I've gone ahead and zip tied this to a couple of points here, and then it runs down. Let me see what you can see. Here's a second point that I've zip tied the electrical cable to, and then over here is where I've added that piece that I was talking about. So this piece is now where I'm going to attach it to underneath the van. So now what you can see, let me see if I can see, you can just pull this out now. Oops, sorry. There, and that's my holder, and now this end is free and we can just snake it outside. So let's give that a try. All right, so check this out. I've got the wire routed up through the floor, and actually by placing it right there, I could actually snake the cable underneath the main track, so it's nice and out of the way, and it ends up coming out right here behind the driver's side, the driver seat. So here we go. We've got a cable, so now all I got to do is just hook this back up to the power strip, and I think we should be in business. All right, so I've got the battery box back in there, and everything seems to fit quite nicely. So now it's just a matter of reversing the process, sticking the battery back in, just like we did in the video where we talked about removing the battery, and we'll give it a shot. So give me a second to put the battery back in and we'll be back. All right, so everything's tidied up, so now's a moment of truth. So let's say you roll up to a campsite and you've got your shore plug here. All you got to do now is just reach under the van, pull out the extension cord. Here we go. And now if we go ahead and make our connection, there we go. And I'm going to leave it right here so I know that I'm plugged into shore power. I'm going to make a little big orange visible thing so you won't be able to drive away while you're still plugged in. But right now we should be plugged in. So let's just go inside the van and see if we've got live power to the inside. All right, so here we are, and look at that. Looks like we got power to the power strip. Again, this is a temporary solution. I'm going to wire this into the permanent electrical infrastructure at some point, but this is a good test just to see if we actually have 120 volts AC coming in. So just as a quick test, the main reason I wanted to set this up is because I've got a dehumidifier that I would like to run constantly inside the van in case it's humid. I don't want things stinking like mildew, so let's test it out. It's plugged in. Let me see if we can flip it on, and look at that. We got power. And you know what? Let's test, how about a hairdryer at the same time? So we got a hairdryer hooked up here. Let me turn on the hairdryer. Hey, look at that. We've got power. So there you go. 120 volt AC shore power done in just a couple of hours by routing it through the bottom of the driver's seat. All right, so now let's talk about the reverse. When you're ready to drive away, all you got to do is come here, disconnect from shore power, and take this and now just tuck it back in and plug it back into that little bolt that we made, or the little housing that we made that I showed you earlier. And it's actually pretty easy. Just kind of reach down. I'm still trying to get used. There we go. Plugged in. And it's tucked in, nice, out of the way, stealth. It doesn't look like there's no big plug sitting out the side of the van showing you that you've actually got a camper setup. So I'm pretty happy with it. All right, so there you go. It's a quick, easy DIY project to add shore power to your van. And I'm hoping this will be fun and I'll be able to use it in a lot of camping adventures in the near future. So if you thought this was helpful, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me continue making these videos. And please stay in touch because I plan to be posting a lot more different videos as we go ahead and build out our transit into an adventure family mobile. So I hope to catch you on one of those videos. Until next time, bye.